Hey everyone, welcome back to Humaning. I'm Sophie, and I'm so glad you're here with us today. If you're new, Humaning is where we talk honestly about what it means to be, well, human, especially the messy, wonderful parts of parenting. Today's episode is called Stop Yelling, Start Connecting, and we're going to dive deep into why we yell, what it does to our relationships with our kids, and how we can shift towards more connection, even in those really tough moments. I'm here with James, my wonderful co host. Hey, James. Hey.
Hey Sophie. Hey everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I feel like yelling is one of those things that so many parents struggle with, even the most patient among us. You know, we all have those days when we're running on fumes, the kids are pushing all the buttons, and suddenly you hear yourself shouting, and then comes the guilt.
Oh, absolutely. That parent guilt is so real. And before we jump in, if you're finding these conversations helpful or even just comforting to know you're not alone, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. It really helps us keep this community growing and means so much to us.
Yes, definitely. So, Sophie, let me throw this out there. Why do you think yelling is such a common default, even for parents who really want to parent differently? I know for me, it's almost like there's an autopilot that kicks in when I'm overwhelmed.
That's such a good way to put it, autopilot. I think a lot of us grew up with yelling, so it's wired into our nervous systems as normal. And when stress hits, our brains literally default to those old patterns. I remember last year, my daughter, she was 4 at the time, she dumped an entire bag of flour on the kitchen floor. I just snapped and yelled, and I instantly felt terrible. But in that moment, it was like my body took over before my brain could catch up.
Oh, the flower incident. I think every parent has a version of that story. For me, it was my son pouring a bottle of shampoo into the toilet to make potions. I could feel the tension rising. And you're right, yelling just sort of bursts out. But what I've noticed is that yelling rarely works. Maybe the kids stop for a minute, but it doesn't actually solve anything, and it leaves everyone feeling disconnected.
Yes, that's so important. Yelling might get compliance in the short term, but it doesn't build understanding or trust. And I think what you said about feeling disconnected is really at the heart of it. When we yell, it's almost like we're putting up this wall. Our kids aren't hearing the message, they're just reacting to the volume and the tone.
Exactly. And I think sometimes as parents, we feel powerless, like yelling is the only tool left in the toolbox. But it doesn't have to be that way. I've been experimenting with pausing before I react, which is so much easier said than done. But even just taking a breath or stepping out of the room for a second can make a huge difference.
Oh, totally. The pause is so powerful. And sometimes I'll narrate out loud what's happening for me, like, I'm feeling really frustrated right now, so I need a minute. It models emotional regulation for our kids, and it gives me a second to cool off. Have you ever tried that?
I have. It feels a little awkward at first, but it actually helped me stay present, and it's amazing how kids pick up on it. My daughter started using that language herself. The other day, she told her brother, "I'm too mad to talk, I need space." I was like, wow, that's emotional intelligence right there.
Absolutely. That's such a win. And I think that's the heart of connection based parenting. It's not about being perfect, but about showing up authentically and teaching our kids how to handle big feelings in healthy ways. Because let's be honest, we're all going to lose it sometimes. The goal isn't to never yell, but to repair afterward and keep trying to connect.
I love that you brought up repair. That's something I didn't really see modeled much growing up, but now, if I do yell or lose my temper, I make a point to apologize. I'll say, "I'm sorry I yelled. That wasn't respectful. I'm working on it." It feels vulnerable, but I've noticed it actually brings us closer.
Yes, that's so powerful. And I think sometimes parents worry that apologizing makes them look weak or undermines their authority, but it's actually the opposite. It shows our kids that everyone makes mistakes and that relationships are built on honesty and trust. Plus, it gives them permission to own their mess ups too.
Absolutely, and I think too about what's happening under the surface. Yelling isn't just about the immediate mess or chaos, it's often about our own stress or feeling out of control. I know for me, if I haven't slept well or I'm worried about work, I'm way more likely to lose my cool.
That's so true. Self care isn't just a buzzword, it's a prerequisite for patient parenting. We can't pour from an empty cup. And sometimes just recognizing that we're running on empty can help us lower our expectations for ourselves and our kids. Like maybe today isn't the day for a big craft project. Maybe it's a movie and popcorn day.
Yes, giving ourselves permission to be human. I think sometimes we set these impossibly high standards, and then when we fall short, we get stuck in shame. But what if we could just say, "Today was hard, I did my best, tomorrow's another chance"?
I love that. And, I think it's also important to remember that our kids aren't trying to push our buttons on purpose. They're just being kids. testing boundaries, learning about the world, and sometimes making huge messes in the process. When we can see their behavior as communication, it helps us respond with curiosity instead of anger.
That's such a shift, isn't it? I remember one time my son was melting down over putting on his shoes and I was getting so frustrated. But when I really tuned in, I realized he was just overwhelmed from a long day. Once I got down on his level and connected with him, the tension just melted away.
Yes, that's the magic of connection. Sometimes all it takes is a few minutes of undivided attention, a hug, or just sitting quietly together. It's not about fixing everything, but about saying, I'm here with you. And that calms both our nervous systems.
It really does. And I had this moment a few weeks ago. My daughter had just started school and she was coming home cranky every day. I was getting frustrated with the constant whining, but one day instead of snapping, I just asked, "Are you having a hard time with all the changes?" She burst into tears and crawled into my lap. It was such a reminder that connection opens the door to understanding.
That's such a beautiful example. And it's such a good reminder that behavior is often the tip of the iceberg. There's always something going on underneath. If we can get curious instead of furious, we open up so many more possibilities for connection.
Curious instead of furious. I love that. I might have to borrow that one, Sophie.
Please do. I probably stole it from someone else anyway. But seriously, it's a mantra I come back to all the time. And sometimes it helps to have practical tools too. Like when I feel myself about to yell, I'll try to lower my voice instead. Sometimes I'll even whisper. It feels counterintuitive, but it actually grabs my kids' attention.
That's such a good one. I've noticed that too. If I can get down to their eye level and speak softly, they're so much more likely to listen. I also try to use humor when I can, like turning a power struggle into a silly game. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it diffuses the tension.
Yes, playfulness is so underrated in parenting. Sometimes we get so serious about managing behavior that we forget kids are wired for play. If we can meet them where they are, it often shifts the whole dynamic. Like, can you hop like a bunny to the bath? Instead of, go take a bath now?
Exactly. And it makes those transitions so much smoother. I think it also helps us enjoy parenting more, even on the hard days, because let's face it, some days are just rough, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And I think that's why these conversations are so important. We all need reminders that we're not alone, that we're not failing, and that every parent yells sometimes. What matters is what we do next, how we reconnect.
Couldn't agree more. And for anyone listening who feels like they yell more than they want to, just know change is possible. It's not about being perfect, it's about making small, consistent shifts and giving yourself lots of grace along the way.
James, as we've been talking, I keep thinking about all those little moments in the day that can be kind of make or break, like the rush out the door in the morning or the end of day chaos when everyone's tired and hungry. Those are the times when I'm most likely to snap, even if I start the day with the best of intentions.
Oh, absolutely. Mornings in my house are like a three-ring circus. Shoes missing, backpack somewhere in the abyss, someone can't find their favorite shirt. I used to find myself barking orders just to keep things moving, but it always set this super tense tone for the day.
Same here. I realize that when I start barking, everyone, including me, starts the day feeling frazzled. So I started building in a few extra minutes. And if I feel myself getting wound up, I'll just stop, take a breath, and say something silly like, quick! Who can find their shoes and hop on one foot to the door? It's not perfect, but it shifts the energy.
I love that. It's amazing how a playful challenge can turn a power struggle into teamwork. We started doing beat the clock with a little kitchen timer. The kids race to get ready before the timer goes off. Sometimes it just evolves into giggles, but I'll take giggles over yelling any day.
Exactly. And it's not just for the kids, it helps us as parents too. When I can bring a little lightness or humor, it actually calms my own stress response. I feel more connected to my kids and less like a drill sergeant.
That's so true. And on the tough days, I try to remember that connection isn't about grand gestures. It's those tiny moments. Like, if I catch myself getting annoyed, I'll just pause, look my kid in the eye, and say, "Hey, can we try this again together?" It doesn't always fix everything, but it keeps the door open.
That's such a gentle approach. I think sometimes parents worry that if we aren't firm enough, the kids will walk all over us. But I've found that when I approach things with empathy and respect, my kids are actually more cooperative. They want to work with me, not against me.
Yes, I think that's such a huge mindset shift. It's not about being permissive or letting everything slide. It's about holding boundaries with kindness. Like, I see you're upset and it's still time to turn off the TV. Sometimes just acknowledging their feelings helps so much.
Absolutely. Validation goes a long way. I remember once my daughter was furious about leaving the playground, and I was tempted to just drag her away. But instead, I said, I know you're really sad to go. You were having so much fun. She still protested, but it was less of a meltdown and more of a conversation.
That's a great example. I think when we validate, we're saying, I see you, your feelings matter. And honestly, that's what we all want, right? To feel seen and understood, even if we don't get our way.
Yes, and I think that's one of the biggest gifts we can give our kids. It's not about never having conflict, but about how we move through it together. And if we do yell, we can always circle back and repair. Like you said earlier, I'm sorry I yelled. Let's try again. Those little repairs are like glue for the relationship.
Totally. And sometimes the hardest part is managing our own expectations. Like, we want our kids to listen the first time or to magically handle disappointment. But honestly, even as adults, we struggle with those things. I know I do.
Oh, same. I mean, just look at us in traffic or waiting in line at the grocery store. We have our own meltdowns. It's humbling, isn't it? I think when we remember that, it helps us offer more compassion to our kids and ourselves.
For sure. And I think that's why self compassion is so important in parenting. When we mess up, and we will, we can choose to speak kindly to ourselves instead of spiraling into shame. Like, okay, I lost it. That was hard. What do I need right now to feel grounded?
Yes, that's such a powerful internal script. And it's really modeling for our kids how to handle mistakes because they're learning, not just from what we say, but from how we treat ourselves. If they see us offering ourselves grace, they'll learn to do the same.
That's such a good point. I think sometimes parents feel like they have to have it all together, all the time. But honestly, our vulnerability is a strength. Admitting when we're struggling, asking for help, even saying, I don't know, let's figure it out together. That's real connection.
I love that so much. And I think it helps to have a reset ritual for when things go off the rails. In our house, when we've all lost our tempers, we'll sometimes do a family group hug or even just sit on the floor together and take a few deep breaths. It's not magic, but it helps us reset. Helps.
That's beautiful. We have something similar. We call it a do over. If things get heated, one of us will say, Can we have a do over? Sometimes we'll actually walk out of the room and come back in, pretending it's a brand new start. The kids love the silliness, and it helps us all let go of the tension.
Do over. Oh, I love that. That's such an accessible tool, especially because sometimes when emotions are running high, we need that physical reset, not just words. Movement, play, even just a change of scenery can really help.
Absolutely. I've noticed that sometimes when the kids are wound up and I feel myself about to yell, it helps to just get everyone outside. Even a walk around the block can be enough to change the mood.
Yes, nature is such a great co regulator. Plus, there's something about being out in the open, seeing the sky, that just puts everything in perspective. Suddenly, the spilled juice or the sibling squabble doesn't feel like the end of the world.
That's so true. And I think it's important to remember that we're not alone in this. So many parents are struggling with the same challenges. I've found so much comfort in talking to other parents, swapping stories, and just realizing, oh, it's not just me.
Absolutely. Community is everything because when we're isolated, it's easy to believe the story that we're failing or that everyone else has it all figured out. But when we open up, we realize we're all just humaning our way through.
That's the heart of it, isn't it? We're all learning all the time. And our kids are too. I try to remind myself that every conflict is an opportunity for growth, for them and for me.
So true. And I think if there's one thing I hope listeners take away from this episode, it's that yelling doesn't make you a bad parent. It makes you a human parent. The real magic is in what happens after, how we reconnect, how we repair, and how we keep showing up.
Yes. And if you're listening right now and thinking, but I yell every day, just know you're not alone. You can always press pause, take a breath, and try again. Every moment is a new chance to connect.
And sometimes the best thing you can do is just get down on your child's level, look them in the eye, and let them know you're on their team. Even if it's messy, even if you're both still figuring it out.
Absolutely. And, sometimes the most powerful words are just, I love you even when things are hard. That goes such a long way.
It really does. And I think, too, that when we model apologizing and making amends, we're teaching our kids that it's safe to be imperfect, that love isn't conditional on getting everything right. That's such a foundation for emotional security.
I couldn't agree more. I actually had a moment last week where I totally lost my cool over something small. A spilled drink, of course. I yelled, and my son just looked so sad. Later, I came to him and said, I'm really sorry I yelled. I was frustrated, but that wasn't fair to you. He hugged me and said, It's okay, Daddy. I know you love me. It was such a reminder that repair is possible.
That's so moving. And I think that's what kids remember, honestly. Not that we never yell, but that we care enough to come back to say sorry and to try again. That's what builds trust.
Yes, and honestly, it takes so much courage to do that. I think we should give ourselves credit for every time we choose connection, even if it's messy.
I agree. Parenting is the ultimate practice in humility and starting over, isn't it?
It really is. And I think the more we talk about these things, the less alone we all feel. So thank you, Sophie, for having these honest conversations with me and with everyone listening.
Thank you, James. It means so much to share this space with you and with all our listeners. Before we wrap up, I just want to remind everyone, if you found this episode helpful, please like, subscribe, and maybe even share it with a friend who could use some support. It really helps us reach more parents and keep these conversations going.
Yes, and thank you so much for being here. We know there are a million things you could be doing, and it means a lot that you choose to spend this time with us. Remember, you're doing better than you think, and you're not alone.
Absolutely. And if you have stories, questions, or topics you'd love for us to discuss, please drop them in the comments or send us a message. We love hearing from you, and we want this podcast to feel like a conversation with friends.
For sure. And if today was a hard day, or if you found yourself yelling more than you wanted, just know tomorrow's a new day. There's always room for a fresh start, for repair, and for connection.
Yes, exactly. Be gentle with yourselves. Parenting is a journey, not a destination. We're so glad to be on this journey with you.
Thanks again for joining us on Humaning. Take care of yourselves and each other.
We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Wishing you lots of patience and lots of connection this week.